Welcome to the podcast, Dan. I'm so glad that you're here. Folks, if you don't know Dan, you're in for a real treat. He is one of a million out there in rural education doing the work every day. A very special leader as well, making an impact in his community. So Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, Will. Looking forward to rocking and rolling.
Dan, tell us a quick version. Tell us about you, your work, and what you're focused on as a leader.
I like to call myself a recovering head coach. I was a 14-year varsity head softball coach, football coach, basketball coach, classroom teacher. I made the decision to walk away from it all and get into administration about 8-9 years ago. Currently a superintendent. I've been at Seneca High School in Seneca, Illinois for 22 years now out of college and wouldn't change anything about it. Been very blessed to have worked my way up the ranks in this district, truly a lighthouse district. Our light shines very bright beyond the cornfields of Illinois and the Illinois River that surrounds us. It's a job that I'm passionate about. This building is, as I jokingly say, it's my vacation home. It's my Airbnb. I've been blessed that my beautiful 17-year-old daughter, graduating senior year shortly, has walked these halls from birth to 17. My funnier than I'll ever be 13-year-old son will be here very soon. I'm a husband. My wife bought me a 20-year GOAT Husband of the Year trophy, national award winner. I'm, like you said in the intro, I'm a small town guy. I live in my little small town. My commute is 3 minutes by golf cart, 2 minutes by truck to work every day, and I love it. Wouldn't change anything about it. It's a great district with great kids, great staff. I'm blessed. I've got a board of education that supports every idea that I have because I just want this place to be special for our kids. Unfortunately, as many people that sit in our chair are not as blessed as I am. And some friends that I've made, I've learned that the hard way, leaning in with them on their struggles. I said I was a recovering head coach, and the coaching lens is something you always have. Now my coaching seems to expand beyond the borders of my district and the walls of my high school here, and has really branched out into something that I never saw coming, a group that I created called Stressed Leaders, a book that I wrote to the leader I was 5 years ago as a rookie superintendent during COVID, trying to be everything to everyone, just drowning in the work like you, I'm sure. As a rural superintendent, we don't work 7 to 3 jobs. We don't work 40 hours a week. I wrote my book to myself, been through a transformational journey as a leader, as a man, as a husband, as a father, and try to pour into other leaders and support them with the struggles that they go through. Stress Leaders started as a getaway wellness retreat, and it's grown into just a mind-changing, life-altering summit that is just a passion project that I love. And we're on our 3rd iteration of that this summer. And we're also expanding beyond our backyard to a new location. Really excited, very blessed, 22 years in education, made a lot of mistakes, but wouldn't change a thing.
Wow, Dan, that's incredible. It just sounds the meaningfulness of your current role, right? But that's grown to impact so many people, which is what leadership is all about, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm very blessed. I used to joke, it's actually a bad joke, but I used to joke because my district's so great that as a rookie superintendent, when everybody would ask me, hey, how you doing? How you holding up? How you surviving? Are you drowning? Are you fighting fires? Are you making it? And I would always say, I'm too blessed to be stressed at Seneca. And It was like that breakup where you say, no, I'm fine. And it wasn't until I really admitted that I was drowning that I really did something about it and share that lesson with so many people today.
That's powerful. So let's dive deeper into that. Tell us about what that was like, the drowning that you described, and what was that like? And what was the place where you were like, I need to do something about this for myself?
Yeah, well, it starts pretty simple. I'm at a high school. One thing that our high school thrives and excels at is our relationships with kids. I was a head coach for 14 years and absolutely loved it. So many of these kids became like daughters to me. Today, I get invited to their weddings and their graduations in college and see the ones that still live around here in town. And now I'm the superintendent leading their kids, and that's how old I've gotten. But I just think when you're a leader that was a head coach, that you don't have an off switch. You're just always going on. And I just continued that into administration and kind of continued it into the superintendency, that I used to say, my door is always open. Come in and talk. Come in and you come in, yell. We can yell and scream, cry, whatever you need to do. You want to be everything to everyone all the time. And it wasn't until I finally started creating boundaries for myself that things changed. And Will, what's sad about that is I'm a beach lover. I wasn't meant to live in the Midwest. A swim up bar,
Not a lot of
meeting my
beaches
kiddo
around
on the
here.
beach.
Yeah.
Those are my places. Those are where I go to get away. And what I learned early in the superintendency was I would go away to those places, but I would imbibe too much because it was the first time in forever that I wasn't on. I didn't have to be superintendent. I didn't have to be the head coach. I didn't have to be everything to everyone. And it became a moment where that's not the man that I am. It's not who I'm trying to be. And for a role model for my kids, my wife, I'm very blessed. My wife, Carrie's my best friend. And I felt like I was just letting her down with the way that I would turn the clock off, partake in those events. I'm not much of a guy that does that kind of thing, but I wouldn't admit that I was stressed. And so the vacation became the outlet to completely unwind and take a suit of armor and take it off and throw it on the floor and not have to wear it for a week. When you let your wife and kids down and you're looking in the mirror about what kind of man you are and the lessons that you portray and that you talk about, I walk my talk every single day at Seneca High School. But then if I'm not walking my talk as dad and husband, what am I doing? So I write about that in my book, Stressed Leaders. I think that's one of the hard things that we have to do as leaders, as men, as role models, is be willing to have the toughest conversations with ourselves and creating boundaries, realizing that I can still not be on, but go do things with my kids and my wife that don't have to be a 7-day trip to the beach and just completely get away from everything, not checking emails while I'm on the beach in Mexico. Those little things, they're hard though, because when you're out of the building, something happens. It never fails. Something goes wrong. Some meeting that you had planned for and delegated and was ready to go without you there didn't go. Those boundaries are hard. When I go to speak at different conferences and schools, it's one of the things I talk about. As a leader, you're everything to everyone, but you drink that Kool-Aid a little too much. I've got to be everything to everyone all the time. Once I created those boundaries and accepted that it's okay, the school's going to run without me. I've got good people here. That was a big turning point for me. That led to a personal wellness journey that I've been on for a few years now. I've lost over 120 pounds, quit drinking as much, eating a lot better and lifting a lot of weights and trying to be a healthier person at 45, but also trying to be a role model, not just to my wife and kids, but to other leaders out there. I write on Substack a lot. And when you write blogs or you write newsletters, you wonder how many people are actually reading this junk that I put out there. And just when you start to doubt that people aren't actually reading what you do, you get that random email.
Yeah.
You get that random reply and they wrote something. It's like your book too. I told you I've got your book and I started reading on my Kindle. I just haven't gotten deep into it yet.
Yeah.
But you get those Amazon reviews from people you don't know and you're like, that's awesome. Who are these people that picked up my book and they're reading it? You got to love those moments. That's what makes doing what you do so special.
That's so powerful. As I'm listening to you, it sounds like it was this growth of letting go of some of that perfectionism, right? Was there a moment where you were like, I've had enough. I've got to let this go. And this is the moment I'm changing my life.
Yeah, there's a couple. Health wise, I had a heart scare. It was electrical. I had to have an ablation that was, and I was 365 pounds at the time. And I asked the doctor, I'm like, is this because of overweight? He kind of looked at me like I had two heads. And he said, well, your weight certainly doesn't help. But when you're 39 years old and you're just got named the superintendent and you're on a surgical bed and your two kids are looking at you and your wife's looking at you, that self-talk, that deep moment with yourself, you realize that this is not who I want to be. And then leadership wise, being a superintendent's different than being like a head coach of a college football team. Bill Belichick went to North Carolina and picked every assistant he wanted. You don't get to do that as superintendent. You inherit a team, but I was fortunate that about half of my team started about the same time as me. So I've put together a leadership team that now 6 years later, I know I can trust and count on. And like you said, that perfectionism, just letting go. Before we got on live here, we were talking about the article that I just wrote about passion drift. Will, you see people out there in the world that we live in, you see how stressed they are. But then you see these speakers that are going to conferences and clinics and jet setting, and it looks shiny and fancy. And you think, man, these guys are making so much money and they don't have a board to report to. They don't have a community to report to. They fly in, they show up for an hour, give a keynote, and ride off into the sunset. It's not all sunshine and rainbows like that. I've gotten the pleasure recently of sitting down with a lot of these people who do that work full time. And I find myself comparing. I think that's natural. You compare
Yeah.
yourself to others. But then I zoom back out from it and come back to my office and realize, man, I've got a great situation with my job and I'm really blessed. Rural education's hard. This morning, it's spring break. I'm here working. I was able to come in a little bit later, lift some weights in the morning and go for a short run at lunch and walk outside. It's 75 and beautiful in Seneca, Illinois today in March. Unreal. I'm working on some projects, getting some board reports ready. Everybody else is on vacation. So it's easy for that passion drift at my stage in my career to set in. I wrote about that book, From Strength to Strength, that the second half of your career really should be about you pouring into others, mentoring, supporting, elevating. That's what I'm trying to do. I love it. That old head coach in me is still in there. It's not helping 17-year-old future college softball players. Now it's helping 45-year-old overweight superintendents that are drifting through a tough time and going through their own set of problems. That's what I love to do now.
Wow, powerful. Dan, it sounds like your work and the work you do with other leaders is so significant, right? Maybe it doesn't drive that status needle necessarily, but it drives that significance, right, of making an impact in people's lives. What's the biggest lie that leaders believe, Dan, when it comes to having to be everything to everybody, right?
I feel bad that I'm on your podcast and I'm in my spring break attire, but usually I've got a suit jacket on. As I've gotten older, I've gotten rid of the ties as much. Only maybe a day or two a week with the ties, but I wear a jacket most days. That jacket's actually pretty symbolic. I think a lie that most leaders lead is that jacket is the suit of armor. And I'm not going to take that armor off. You're not going to see me weak. I've got a couple good friends that are out of the superintendency now that are going through some tough times. This job can be toxic. It can break a person. I've seen it with some good friends through no fault of their own. But I think that jacket, many leaders, especially a lot of men, are unable to willingly take off that suit of armor. I was a head coach. Coaches a lot of times have that persona. I told my buddy who was going through a real tough time, I said, it's okay to have wounds. The people, that voice in your head, that critic that's eating at you, they don't need to see your wounds. They can see your scars. And that suit of armor, that jacket that a lot of leaders are unable to take off or unwilling to take off, I think that's so debilitating. I wrote my first book, Will, and sent it to a couple publishers. One guy that I greatly respect that owns his own publishing company, he told me, Dan, your book is too raw and too vulnerable, and I worry about your career. And I told him, I said, with all due respect, you don't know my career and my school, but I do value your feedback, but I want to be vulnerable because I think it's powerful to share with other leaders that it's okay to admit that you don't have all the answers, that in this moment you're not strong, and that in this moment you're wounded right now, but you're going to rise up from it and you're going to fix it. With all due respect, your feedback I value comes from a good spot, but I'm not going to change the vulnerability of what I'm writing. He passed, but I found another editor and publisher that was great. He was giving good advice to say, I would hate for a book that you put out to somehow impact your career adversely. He didn't see the picture of what I was trying to build with these summits and what I wanted to get that leader that's going through a toxic, life-altering situation with a board or community or staff. I was talking at a conference to a leader that I love, and she was telling me that in her final days as superintendent, she had a principal and two board members working behind her back to oust her and take her spot. That's unfortunately the reality of dealing with a representative democracy that has no formal training in what you do.
Yeah.
You do have to report to them. And sadly, sometimes with agendas and biases, it can come with awful behaviors. So that suit of armor, you don't have to wear it every day. I ain't wearing it right now. I'm telling you about my own weaknesses and I'm okay with it.
I love it.
I tell people that consistency and vulnerability are two of my superpowers. You're not going to outwork me, but I'm also going to tell you about the mistakes I made.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're among friends. I've got the hoodie today. We're a 4-day week in Missouri, so you're among friends on the podcast, man. Tell me a little bit the fail points. What are some things that leaders who are listening to this, especially in rural communities, what do they need to be aware of so that they don't fall into a lifestyle of stress or a lifestyle of burnout? What are some things that you see in your work that you would help them with?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I learned early in my superintendency, I was very blessed to have a wonderful mentor. I was his assistant before I became soup, and he taught me a lot about the job, about being a leader as a man and the way you communication. I think in a rural area, especially, our high school is the showpiece of our community. Everything happens at the high school. And so there's great power in that, but there's also great responsibility, right? I'm at almost every single varsity home sporting contest out there. I love sports. Early this year at a basketball game, I had a parent who knows me personally. I'm walking out towards my truck to leave for the night, and we were winning easily. We got a minute left, and he grabs me and says, "Hey, can I get a couple minutes of your time?" And being a nice guy and being everything to everyone, I said, "Of course." When I realized where the conversation was going, basketball playing time, I
Oh,
said, "Hey, there's a chain of command we've got. We got to do this thing the right way." I bring that up, but what I've done better at in my 6 years is realizing the importance of communication so there's no surprises, so that parents aren't blindsided, but also just telling our own story. You got to tell your story. If you don't, somebody else will, and they'll probably tell it in the light you don't like. But it takes consistent, intentional work to do that.
yes, it does.
And so my first 3 years of superintendent, I was that guy. I was manning all social media channels. I was handling stakeholder communications. You don't have time to do those things. I've got a very active Twitter account, but I was every day on that thing trying to do that. My secretary was doing our Facebook. The intentionality of the message is important, but it has to align to what your mission is. You've got to walk your talk. It can't just be words on a wall. It can't just be on a shelf and a binder on your shelf. And so I, over 2 years, stressed the importance to our board about a communications director. And I got the right person to do the job for a school of 400 kids at a high school. Seems like to some people listening, wow, it must be nice to have a communications director. But I talked about all the value adds to my board about why we need to do this, that we already have a great school with a great story, a great mission, a great vision. But it doesn't stay that way if we're not intentional about our messaging and what we're trying to do. And he's been doing the job for almost a full school year now, and he's killing it. He's somebody that went to college for public relations and sports marketing, and our brands have elevated and our stories out there every day. But I was doing it all. My first 3 years, 4 years, I was doing it all by myself. I've had to sit with Matt, our communications director, and I've had to teach him, here's how a superintendent thinks. Here's why this message needs to be tweaked this way. But it's something off of my plate that I have to inspect what I expect. But he's doing a great job. And we meet once a week and we talk about the messaging. I see him every day, but we meet intentionally once a week. My biggest weakness, something that I say every single year in my own self-evaluation that I do, is just getting out of my office. It's so hard. I've tried the mobile desk and I'm not as efficient at it. I've got some huge projects as a district that we're working on right now, a construction, and then some crazy wild idea that I'm doing right now that would be its own separate podcast. We're facing a lot of the same issues in all rural communities, population flight. I bought a farm. Me and the board we're building a subdivision. The school's doing it. It's taken over half of my job. So I've offloaded the communications, but I've put back onto the plate this new project. But Will, if I took you around my school and you saw all the things that we offer a school of 400 kids, you would think we were a school of 2,000. I don't want to lose any of those programs. I've got to get more people in our community. And it's a political reality of what that looks like in a small town with no stoplights. And your only places to eat are Casey's, Subway, and a couple bars.
You're speaking my language, man.
It's going to be a future book. I've been working on this for 2 years now, and it's probably a 5-year project at minimum. But I've read enough about you, Will, and getting to know you in this podcast that you take great pride in your community in Missouri, and I do too. It's like a piece of your family. This building, the kids that walk through it every year, the staff members, the community. When someone says something bad about your school, it's like somebody did something to one of your kids.
Yes. You feel
And
it.
those are fighting words. And when you're a former head coach that's used to competition, you better come hard at me if you're going to come at me.
That's right.
It's the job's hard.
Yeah.
And if you're a high flyer like you and me, we make it even harder.
On ourselves sometimes too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I get
And I've
that.
gotten better at it, but I'm still not perfect. I'm nowhere close.
I always call it being bulletproof, right? Where I
Oh,
can do it all. There's this layer of what you're talking about that's resonating with me, where it's what am I doing to myself instead of keeping the focus on the main thing. Dan, what is the main thing in your view? And how do you keep yourself grounded in what that looks like?
so there's one question. I didn't come up with it. I don't know if he came up with it, but he has it all over social media, and I've gotten to know him. Jonathan Alsheimer, who is a former teacher, keynote speaker. He talks about the way you teach your classroom. For me, the way I try to lead my building, teach that kid in the front row of your classroom like it was one of your own kids, one of your children. And so I tell my board
Yes.
that guides my decision making. It's not parent blinders. It's not the my kid's got to be the showcase. It's not that at all. But the decisions that we make should be for the betterment of all of our kids in our building. At Seneca this morning, I met with 4 families. We meet with every single incoming freshman formally to create what's called a student success plan. It's an IEP, but for all 400 kids. And we
Love
work through it
that.
all 4 years. I meet with them as 8th graders, and then I meet with them when they're seniors in high school in a formal exit interview, like a job interview. In a small town where we need those people to be successful. And in Seneca, Illinois, one of the greatest opportunities is in the local building trades. Where I live just south of Chicago, we've got intermodal shipping facilities off Interstate 80 and 55. We've got data centers, nuclear power everywhere. And so those building trades, those jobs are some of the highest paying jobs around. I met with 4 kids and their families this morning and talk about their success. So to your original question, how can I sit with this family and look them eye to eye right across from my desk this morning, like I did, and tell them that Embry and Braden that I met with this morning, your story matters, and your story at Seneca High School and your success is something that I want to look back 4 years from now when you sit in my office with me in a job interview, man to man, that you're ready to fly and
Yeah.
you're ready to kill it. And hopefully you want to stay in Seneca. There's great power in that. And if you approach your decision making in leadership, in a classroom, on the baseball field, with the same value you'd want your own children to have, it changes everything. As a parent, man, it changes everything. The way you do
Yes.
what you do, you just want to see your kids happy and successful. That's all that matters. My son thinks he's going to play in the NBA. He's not. And I tell him all the time that, dude, I just want you to work hard and be happy. That's all I care about. You
Yep.
you care about getting 22 points a night. I don't care about that. I love watching you be successful, but I told him that this season he had one night where he went 0 for 13 shooting and he made 1 free throw out of 2. And I said, dude, that's and
Basketball.
you worked your tail off. You had steals, you had rebounds, you took a charge. What 7th grader's taking a charge? And I said, I don't care how many points you have. I care about how hard you play and what kind of leader you are on the court. But as a parent, you just want your kids to be hardworking, happy, successful. And if that same frame of reference guides your leadership decision making, it's so easy. When I have a teacher I need to discipline or have a come to Jesus meeting with, and I'll oftentimes say to them, would you want this type of treatment for your son? And
That's
it puts
good.
it right back on them. Some people say it sounds like lip service, but man, I try to make that how I do what I do.
I always think about that too, Dan. If my kid was in the hallway, would I let them pass without me saying hello to them or
Yeah.
giving them a high five or an encouragement? And I think that's the closeness of rural education. That's the unique culture that we have in rural education where trust grows. Burnout can spread through a whole system, but so can trust. As a leader, how do you instill that? How do you build that trust? What are some practical tools you use to help staff, to help parents, to help students build that trust?
It's hard. What's unique about me as a superintendent in a rural district is I'm out there outside in the hallway every day. And I love that part of my job. I could go north 20 to 30 miles and make a lot more money near Chicago than I do. I'm very blessed where I'm at and very happy, but I could make a lot more money, work in a central office with 9 buildings and 9 schools. I would hate that. I wouldn't know
Yeah.
any of the kids, any of the staff. I would not thrive in that environment at this stage in my life. Maybe down the road, who knows, but I don't know. I'm very happy. My predecessor did his dissertation on trust, and he taught me a lot about trust. He was a great mentor that I worked side by side with for 4 years before I became superintendent, and just a even better man than he was a superintendent, but a great superintendent. And he did his dissertation on trust. So he'd always give me little kind of fables and anecdotes about trust, and a good conservative Christian man too. So I learned a lot about life through him. I was a high school teacher here. So a lot of people that are in our classrooms, I grew up with. When you become the boss, those relationships change a little bit, right?
Yes.
When you have to call them out on some of the actions they're doing that are not a part of the Seneca way,
Yeah.
you have to reset some of those relationships. And I've had a few that, because I've had to do things that are because of their behaviors, they look at you as the bad guy. So centering it back on our mission and what we do and how we do things the right way, we have processes of integrity. That's hard. I'm a destination district. We're a lighthouse. It's a special place. People want to work here. People's kids want to work here. When their kids don't get a job, the guy in the big seat becomes the bad guy. I've had that. And in a small town where people live here, bad gas can travel fast in a small town. And it's hard because those little interactions can break years of trust. And as the leader, you have to embrace it, that I've got to make decisions for the betterment of the district. I've got to make decisions for the betterment of how I'd want my kid treated, for all kids. And a lot of times those decisions become personal for people that are on the other side of the decision. I've had my fair share of those. It's not easy. It's not fun. No one likes conflict. I don't care how tough of a person you think you are. Nobody wants it.
I always tell people nobody likes it, but you have to go through it as a leader.
And you can't hide from it. You have to embrace the reality that trust takes years to build and seconds to break. It's so hard when you're invested in your everything to everyone, and now all of a sudden you got 2 teachers, 3 community members that don't like you and take your decision-making personal and want to make it personal. A mentor a long time ago told me, Dan, if you're a head coach for your whole career, every year you're going to make 2 or 3 families in this little small town mad. We're a town of 2,500 people. 25 years of doing this, that's 75 families and all their cousins and all their neighbors and all their extended people. I've had a couple situations in the early parts of my superintendency that I had to make some tough decisions that people didn't like, and that people didn't know all the intimate details because they're confidential. When you see those people and they won't make eye contact with you, you see them at the grocery store, you see them getting gas at Casey's, you see them at dinner at the bar, and they do everything they can to avoid you, I walk right up to them and shake their hand and say hi, even though I know in their head they are not saying the same thing. Trying to repair that bridge, even though I know with integrity that I didn't do anything wrong, but my decision has put their view of me in a negative light. It is what it is. It's up to me to be the better man and do something about it. Like I said earlier, you're not going to see my wounds, but you can see my scars, and you can see me sweat, but you know that I'm going to keep working.
I love that. It's not that a unified culture is this fairy tale land. There's a reality to doing business with your neighbors, but the difference is, as a leader, you still care and you're still going after them and you're still trying to help them. Dan, how can people stay connected to what you're doing with the summit, with Stress Leaders? What can people do to get engaged with what you're doing?
Yeah, thanks. It's so cool what's become of this summit. In 3 years, we went from the first year, I'm like half begging people to come to it. So this is going to be awesome. Just
trust me.
And then, like any passion project you have, I laugh, Will, because I think we have a lot in common. On wood, there's not many things I haven't been successful at in life. And becoming an entrepreneur and building something on the side, that'll humble you. The first summit we had, I had 18 people there, and I think 15 of them were my friends or colleagues or family members. They saw how cool it was, and I was excited that half of them came back for year 2, but then we added like another 25 or so. Now this year, I'm going to start marketing it for spring break, but I've already got 30 people signed up, and I haven't even tried yet.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Talk about impact.
It's a day and a half of real leadership, uncluttering brain fog. I'm not only lead it, but I'm a participant as well. And We've got amazing speakers, and it's not a sit and get branded as the anti-conference.
I
We're
love
doing
that.
stuff. We've got great speakers, and I'm so excited that Justin's going to join us in Indianapolis. You're just pouring into other people in education and healthcare and business ownership, entrepreneurs, real estate, firemen, energy sectors. Everybody's going through the same stuff. When you lead people, you have the same fires, the same problems. You take that suit of armor off, do it in my keynote. After my keynote, we do cold plunge therapy. And half the people are like, I ain't doing that. I'm not going to make you do it. But for me, here's what happens when I cold plunge, brain fog is gone. I submerge my head underwater and it's like I come out a new man. Your pores open, you exfoliate. The science behind it I've researched, but for me, it's empowering. And it feels like you don't need that suit of armor. You feel like a different man. So we do a hike, we do breathing exercises, we do some networking. It's just a great event. The summit's amazing, but I know not everybody can fly to Chicago or fly to Indianapolis. But the book I wrote, Stress Leaders Stay in the Game, it's about keeping people in the game of leadership. It's about the reality that these jobs are hard. And
Yes.
we're losing leaders like crazy. And what's the world going to look like in 5 years with no leaders? You can get my book on Amazon, but I write on Substack a lot. Substack is my outlet for decompressing. It's an outlet where I write about a lot of different things, and I've got a pretty good following on there. You can look us up at Substack, Stress Leaders. The summits are amazing. The website, stressleaders.com, has a lot of info. I love talking, as you've probably found out in this podcast. I love talking about leadership and pouring into other people. I'm still a recovering head coach. The coaches don't run sprints. Coaches don't swing the bat, throw the ball, catch the ball, pitch the ball. The coach sets you up to be successful. And even though my days on the softball diamond or the football field are beyond me, I'm still doing other leaders. And that's what Stress Leaders is all about. You're never going to eliminate stress, but let's find ways to combat it successfully.
Dan, one way that we wrap up our time with these podcasts is I ask the same question to everybody, and here we go. I don't know how it is where you're at, but I know in my community, the highways get pretty long. And on those highways, there's usually a billboard somewhere, right, on the side of the road. And those billboards always have these unique messages in rural America. Dan, if I were to ask you a question to be thinking about the billboard that is on the highway of your life that you would want to put up for others to see, what would be on that billboard?
Wow, that is a great question. And I love it because, as I hinted at earlier, I'm doing some things that the superintendents don't do. I'm blessed that I can lead and dare boldly with what we do, but we need more kids in our school. So we're doing this right now. We're marketing our school. Well, I don't know how things are in Missouri, but nationwide, there's a lot of discussion of school choice and public education. And it seems like if you get on Twitter, Facebook, there's not a lot of positive thoughts about what we do in public schools. I know we do amazing things every single day in my school, and I'm sure you do too. And so on that billboard, I would guarantee you that every kid that walks through my school is met with a safe smile, that fist bump, that high five, that how you doing? I know I do it. Our teachers do it. Even though I am not a fan of a lot of private schools and the way they do things, especially athletically, Seneca's Mars. It's a foreign planet. We do things better than anyone around, and I'm not shy about it. We talk about we're the Fighting Irish, and we take great Irish pride in everything we do, from the way we end our emails to the way our teams break out after a game. We talk about Irish pride. We talk about those kids I met with this morning, their success plan, and how Irish pride is a part of it. The Seneca Way, our mission, does not sit on a bookshelf. It would be on that billboard, and it would guarantee success for your kid to come to my town, to come to my school and be successful with Irish pride.
Man, I love it. I would love to see that billboard. That would be an awesome billboard. Dan,
Yeah,
thanks.
well, as we're building a subdivision, we might have a billboard.
There you go. Good idea.
Yeah, but that's for a different time.
Hey, good ideas come from great conversations and amazing connections. Dan, thank you for your time today and the connection. I'm walking away inspired, believing in my rural school just by listening to you today. So thanks for all you do, Dan.